Hey, so I made a video a few days ago on what I think it means to allow things to happen, or the importance of allowing things to happen. And then there have been a few posts on Reddit lately about acceptance. Like, should you accept yourself the way you are, even if you want to change? And should you accept a situation that you don't like, essentially, while you're trying to change it, or while you're manifesting a different one? And I think there's probably a little bit of a hang up with language because, those two words, allowing, accepting, might seem like the same exact thing to some people, but I think there's a really key difference between them. And that is, I think when you accept something, there's a certain sense of finality to that. Whether or not you're open-minded to the possibility that it could still change. If you accept something the way it is, you're basically saying, I think, I don't know that I have the ability to change this into something else. I don't know if this will ever change. And I want peace. I want to stop fighting. I want to stop having anxiety. So I'm going to accept that this is the way it is. The way that I've experienced that has been with people mostly. I've just kind of started dabbling in the people realm of all this creation stuff, all this creative stuff. I kind of always just left the people off to the sidelines saying, oh, people are people and they have minds of their own, and I just have to accept people for how they are. I don't want to change anybody. That was always a big value of mine. Like, I don't want to change anybody. And so I would accept situations that almost always were disappointing for one reason or another. I would just say, well, maybe this is the best I can do, or whatever. And examining why I would do that when I didn't do that in any other area of my life, it's certainly because I held the belief that I didn't have any power to change it, since I believed that, people were off limits, essentially. In the rest of my life, I would never have accepted something not being the way I wanted it to be. It took me 15 years of obsessive thought and planning and trying and failing about getting from where I was weight-wise to where I am now. I never accepted that for 1 second. The idea was abhorrent to me. In fact, people in my life who watched my misery about it, I think almost everybody who's close to me at one point or another said, I think that you should just accept this and try to get happy where you are. And that idea to me, oh my God, that was like a instant enragement when people would say that to me, like, how dare you suggest that I don't have the power to change. That was my reaction. I was like, this is within my control. I just haven't figured it out yet. That was my attitude about it. And same thing with the idea that I should ever accept not having as much money as I wanted just seemed ludicrous to me, because to me, money just seems like it's this inanimate object. I don't know, just the idea of accepting being broke, or worse, identifying with being poor or something like that, it just never even occurred to me, because all of these things seemed within my control, even outside of the realm of applying any kind of energetic thought to obtaining it. I was like, even in the most mundane sense of the world, I was just like, okay, I can get money. So I think accepting something that you don't want is essentially saying, I don't have the control to change this. However, I think that not accepting a situation does not mean that you have to be, man, I'm using a lot of double negatives here. I think that you can also be peaceful while being in a situation that is not what you want it to be, as long as you don't go mentally to a place where you don't think you can change it, if that makes sense. As long as you are manifesting the change that you want, I think then you can allow the situation to be what it is in the present moment, with the knowledge and the certainty that it will become what you want it to be. To me, that's what allowing is. Allowing, I think often, I said this in my last video, I think allowing often means sitting through and trying to talk yourself out of some shit human emotions. You know, if the goal is peace, I guess you can get to that one of two ways, right? You can accept the situation and say, I don't have any control over this, and just sort of try to make your dissatisfaction with that your new normal. Or you can say, I do have control over this. I will get this eventually. I will figure this out, whatever you have to tell yourself. And then you just kind of try to make your present moment and your present surroundings or whatever you have going on as pleasant as you can in the meantime. For me, with my weight, that was a big one where I just, I didn't accept it. I knew I was going to fight the good fight or die trying. And, for me, that ended up playing out as kind of ducking out of life for about a decade. I found a partner who was very introverted and antisocial, in terms of like not wanting to socialize, and who didn't get on me about my looks or anything. And I just kind of ducked out for like 10 years. I didn't buy any clothes. I didn't, I just didn't want to identify with the weight. It was first and foremost on my mind. But I just kind of ducked out so that I wouldn't have to deal with the outer feedback or, the frustration of wanting to be where I am right now and not being there. Like, it's not right now. It's a pleasure for me to get dressed, to go somewhere, to go shopping for clothes or put makeup on or whatever. Now it's a pleasure because I'm where I want to be. But it's like every attempt to do something like that was just a bitter reminder that I wasn't where I wanted to be and that I was kind of failing at trying to get there every day. And so I stopped doing it. Like I didn't put myself through that. And a lot of people I think would have looked at how I lived my life as being very unhealthy. It was very out of balance, for sure. But my main concern was not being miserable all the time. I didn't want to be any more miserable than I already was. So I didn't want to try to force myself to go buy a wardrobe. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. And that for me, I think, is what allowing meant. I allowed the time to pass. I allowed my life to unfold. And, I had this certainty that I would get there, and I did. I eventually got to a point where I was able to make the mental shifts that were necessary to be successful and to get where I wanted to go. A lot of this stuff is a process. Sometimes it takes a long time. A lot of people tell you it doesn't have to, that you place limits on yourself. And I think that that's true, but it doesn't matter because you're going to get wherever you're going to go in whatever time frame it takes. And, looking back on everything, I occasionally have regrets that I didn't figure it out sooner or that I wasn't able to achieve the things I wanted to achieve sooner. But then I look at the other things that were going on during that time. I built a business during that 10 years where I ducked out of life. I don't know. I think that peace is at the core of both of these things, acceptance and allowing. And my advice would be never accept a situation that you don't want. Never believe that you can't change a situation, including with people. I think with people, it becomes very challenging. At least for me it is, because as I've mentioned, this is my area where I'm still removing mental blocks. For me with people, it's all about selecting a reality where you have what you want and not interfering in the meantime. I've mentioned my friend that's staying with me during the coronavirus lockdown on this channel a bunch. And I've especially seen this demonstrated with him. Like, I'm not going to make a case for why an attitude he has shouldn't be that way. Or I'm not going to make a case for why his approach to certain things are not serving him. And I'm certainly not going to make a case for anything that has to do with me and him. You know what I mean? I'm just kind of allowing, I didn't even mean to use that word. I'm just kind of allowing the situation to unfold and adjusting my course as it goes. You know what I mean? So I started out wanting one thing to come to pass. Okay, and then it did. And then other things, you know, and then I'm just kind of adjusting as I go. You know, I'll go, okay, I think this thing is kind of a problem, and I don't want it to be a problem anymore. So I'm going to select this reality where in the next few days, I get a good indicator that this is no longer an issue. And it's just been happening one after another, after another, after another. Whereas in the past, you know, if something had come up I didn't like, I might have said something about it. You know, I might have tried to plead a case, and it's just not necessary. It's just in selecting the right reality and figuring out how, for you direct your energy at it and attach to it and move to it. A million techniques out there. You know what they are. So anyway, that's my opinion and my contribution to the do you accept it or not question. My answer is fight like hell and don't accept anything that you don't want.